All right, everyone. We're going to get started. We're a little bit late. We were waiting for another person, but it looks like they're running late, and I haven't gotten any contact from them. So we're going to get started anyway. Welcome to the Widow Jane tasting. This one's going to have some nice swag. So one of the rolls is going to get this beautiful little box. So Jessica from Widow Jane has done us. Oh no, I'm not going to shake it. I will open it. I will open it. Oh, the card fell out. But there are 5 little minis in there. Which means it's not all the ones we're tasting.
You just said a box.
Yeah.
So that should be the first thing we roll for that.
It should be.
Most names are on the.
Yes.
There's also a token for a free distillery tour in there as well.
Thank you. I forgot about that too. Which is going to be, sorry to those folks virtually, but this one's only for the in-person. So, and then we've got some other giveaways. We've got some sweatshirts from Widow Jane, and we've got some other stuff. So we're really excited about this one. One of the other things is, so we've got the 4 whiskeys, the Widow Jane 10, the Lucky 13, which I was very lucky to get my hands on, the American Oak Rye, and the Applewood Oak Rye. So each group should have a menu on their table, I hope. Everybody's got one, good. Okay, everybody's got a copy of the menu on their table. And I'm now gonna turn it over to Jessica from Widow Jane, please. And you can just see the camera to see if you're
there we
in the
go.
right spot. Yeah.
Hi everybody. Hi guys. I'm Jessica, Jess, whatever. I am from Widow Jane. So Widow Jane is a whiskey out of Brooklyn. We are sister companies with a few other of the portfolio. So I live in Maryland and take care of Widow Jane in Maryland, DC, and Delaware. I drink a lot of whiskey. So if you guys have any questions, I know way too much about whiskey, and I know you all do too, because you're here for a reason. So please ask me any questions, and John didn't say it, but I did bring a little surprise for everyone for the end. I do have a bottle of Widow Jane Decadence with me. So it's a very limited Widow Jane bourbon aged in maple syrup barrels that is delicious. And there will be some in select stores coming up next month, but I don't know where they're gonna go, so.
And that's a model for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, no. But everyone can have some. Is there anything else you want me to say, or?
No. Wherever you want to go. The first course is going to be coming up in just a moment. And the first course is going to be, as you can read for yourselves, I'm sure, but the first course is going to be fried green tomatoes with almond, feta, and celery tomato salad with a bourbon bacon vinaigrette. And Mel and Brett said they chose that with the because of the maple flavor. They said that's going to really pair well with that Widow Jane 10. And Tanya, if you want to put up the bottle pick or whatever.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about the Widow Jane. And
we should probably talk about the Widow Jane 10 before we taste it, because what we're going to do in about 7 minutes is do a pour, have a little sip before we eat, and then drink the rest while we're...
Well, before we taste it, and when you guys do, when you guys do taste it, that's not the Widow Jane 10, by the way. Just in case you're wondering.
It's a little light.
It's a little bit light, yeah. A little bit. That's the 13 actually. So Widow Jane, like I said, is out of Brooklyn. We were founded in 2012, so we have a 10-year bourbon, and 2012 is not 10 years, right? So we do source some of our whiskey. The 10-year is going to be a blend of bourbon from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana. What we're looking at with our brand is the blend and the water. So we'll taste it and we'll taste the finish on it and a few things like that, but it really is about the lost art of the blend, which nowadays a lot of larger producers just pour a bunch of different barrels, and if you pour enough barrels in, they'll all kind of taste the same, right, when you homogenize them. We do 5 barrels or less, and they are all tasted and blended by our master distiller, Lisa Wicker, who is amazing. She is just a phenomenal blender, distiller, person. If you guys ever get a chance to go up there, she's usually there. Sometimes she's in Kentucky working with our heirloom corn, and sometimes she's actually down in DC. I guess it would be south of DC in Mount Vernon, because she also consults for the George Washington distillery, which is amazing. She gets to use all of the items that he used to use, the water mill and things like that. So she's very cool, and she luckily came to us, and we're gonna keep her forever. She's never going anywhere, and if she sees this on YouTube, she's gonna hear that.
Did you say?
So that's Lisa. Yeah, that's Lisa right there. She's amazing. She's one of my favorite people. That's our rick house in Brooklyn, which is just across the street from our distillery, which, fun fact, used to be a chocolate factory as well, up until about maybe it was last year or right before all this fun we're going through now started. We used to still be a chocolate factory, so when you went up to visit us, you would be able to get awesome chocolates from Cacao Prieto, which is that building. It still says that, I believe, there right now, as well as some amazing bourbon. So does anybody have any questions about specific, like, Widow Jane things? Because I feel like you guys know a lot of stuff, and I don't want to just, like...
In this case, not about Widow Jane, but
yes.
blending. So that's one of the keys to Widow Jane.
Yes.
And there are countries, specifically Japan, where the master blenders are the key to the whiskeys.
Yep.
So we've seen some collaborations between Japanese and American. Is there any Japanese influence with Widow Jane?
I don't believe so, but I don't know if she has. So she did a lot of work with Dave Pickerel, which I'm sure you guys know him. She worked with him for a long time, learned a lot from him. She also started in wines. She worked the fields and picked grapes for wines, and then started from there and worked for wines and got into distilling. And she just has an amazing palate. I know she has tons of people that she would credit with her abilities. I don't specifically think there's anyone from Japan, but it is actually, like, if you were to think about getting something to taste the same or as similar as possible using so few ingredients, it's hard. It's very, very hard. And then adding in the fact that we're proofing down with limestone mineral water, which changes it, you know, that flavor profile. After you proof down with it, it's even harder. So 5 barrels, and our barrels are 53 gallons, is not a lot of liquid to work with. So you'll see in the picture of her that she's leaning over a barrel in the rick house, because she'll go out and take samples of barrels, taste them if they're good, if they're ready. And we do have a 10-year bourbon, but some of the barrels are more than 10 years. 10 years just means it's the youngest bourbon that's in the barrel. So
yeah, that was when we learned last time with the Dewars, because the Dewar is 15.
Yeah.
You know, the minimum age of the whiskey in there is 15 years old. There can be ones that are much older that can be, but nothing can be younger than that age state.
Correct. So it has to be at least 10 years old. We do, because of flavor profiles and getting things to taste homogeneous, you know, we do have to pull from some older barrels. And I mean, I'd imagine some of the batches might not even have anything as young as 10 years then, you know. So, but you'll see her, she has a few samples there, and she's just tasting them. She'll proof them down while she's tasting each barrel too, because that'll change some of the flavor profile, and you can get some nuances based on adding our mineral water to the single barrel itself. And you can kind of see how it might affect it in a blend as well. So,
Speaking
but I
of
mean,
samples, maybe everybody should pour their first sample.
Oh yeah, please do. Pour your
Right
10.
before-
It's the blue, is that correct?
That's for you to use.
Oh, thank
I
you.
don't want you to.
Oh yeah.
Blue is the first one.
Yeah, so blue.
Yeah, blue is the Widow Jane 10.
So this is our flagship. You will find this in most stores. If you don't find it in your local store,
Water is to be used, you could use the water
Ask
as a
them to bring
rinse
it in.
and pour it into the bucket in the middle, or whichever. You already have something in your glass. Did you have a trivia question you wanted to ask the group? Maybe for one of the sweatshirts?
do you want to start now or do you want to do it later?
Well, we can do
or-
one right now while everybody's pouring.
Okay.
So Jessica's decided
Look, I
that
haven't
you're all
told them
really
that.
whiskey smart. She's decided this room is very whiskey smart. So we're gonna do a giveaway of one of the sweatshirts. She's gonna ask a question. First person to answer it correctly
That's a sweatshirt.
gets a sweatshirt.
All right. So you're in charge of looking at hands. We'll do like
Tanya, keep
people are
keep
just
an eye on
gonna
hands.
like yell.
know what I'm supposed to-
We've had
Just watch somebody's
whoever
hand go
raises
up.
their hand first gets to answer the question.
Can
All right.
the answer be wrong?
I mean, the answer can be wrong, yes, but
If it is, you don't
if
win
it's
anything.
wrong, you don't win. These are life rules. These are life rules we should all know. So how old does a whiskey have to be considered straight? Straight.
You don't get it, raise your hand.
What was the question?
How old does a whiskey have to be considered straight?
2 years?
Yes. So if you see on a bottle it says straight whiskey, you can be assured that whiskey is at least 2 years old.
Now, for a bourbon, it's 2 years as well, age-wise, but there are other restrictions that
Yes.
allow it to be called a bourbon.
Yes. Bourbons are crazy.
Oh, what's that?
The reason is because taxes, by the way. Because taxes. That's why bourbon is crazy. No, there were a lot of issues back in the day about adulterating bourbons, and them being in barrels made it a lot easier to add certain things that weren't supposed to be in there. I know, I feel like I'm a
I got a question.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not super familiar with Widow Jane as a company. Can you tell me a little bit more about like how it started and what differentiates it? I know you said blending, but
Yeah,
you also
so-
mentioned the water.
So our namesake Widow Jane is because there is a mine in Rosendale, New York. It is about 100 miles north of Brooklyn, where we have our distillery, and it's the Rosendale Mines is the big aquifer. There's a few different ones. Back in like the 1830s, when we were building up this country, building all of our beautiful edifices, we needed concrete, and to make concrete, we need limestone. So there is a large limestone shelf in Rosendale, and a few different people started mines there, one of them being called the Widow Jane Mine. Now that name has a million different stories for it. The Widow Jane, and the latest one I've heard was the mine was named after a gentleman whose wife was named Jane. Everyone who worked in the mine hated him. He died. So they all named the mine Widow Jane Mine because they liked her a lot better. I like that one, but she was a firecracker apparently. But we get our namesake from that mine, which is where we get our water from. So it's a large aquifer. We technically walk in a door that's a few doors down from the Widow Jane door, and we're in the Rosendale Mines. So we are the only people allowed to use that water, which filters through amazing limestone mineralized. I mean, it's one of the highest mineralized waters there is out there, and obviously you guys know water is important in whiskey. There's Kentucky water, there's New York water, everyone's got their water. I wanted to I've done tastings before and I brought water. We got in trouble for bottling water. So you're not allowed to, you have to have a completely different license to bottle water apparently than whiskey. So we don't have that license. They're not giving us that license, so I couldn't bring you water. But if you do go up to our distillery, you can still taste some of our water. And if you taste it next to any other water, it's so completely different. So the Widow Jane is from that name. We get our water from there. Sometimes our master distiller, Lisa, drives a truck up with a big water tank on the back of it and fills it up. It comes back down to New York. So it's definitely a small operation. But that's where it's from. And so aside from the ability to blend in hyper small batches, the water is what gives us our very large mouthfeel and long finish. So you'll get that minerality. It will last on your tongue for a long, long time. It's big, it's bold, and having that in there is what gives us our character. So even though we do source, and everyone knows her and loves her, and she gets literally the pick of the barrels. She's crazy. She gets whatever she wants. Which is why we got those barrels we talked about, that 8-year oak that no one else has ever had in the world. So she gets whatever she wants, but we do pick the best barrels, and she has an amazing palate for that. But we're also using her talents as a blender, and then that water, which no one else can use as well in the whiskeys. So our 10 years, the flagship that you guys have in front of you, I feel like do I have it? Yeah. I can't remember if I switched glasses. They look the same to me.
It looks like you did. That one looks a little watery.
I just want to say I'm pretty impressed that I put those in order.
I think you had the two twiddle, but
Oh,
the
yeah,
rest
yeah.
were all in order.
Yeah.
But they were so, I mean, they're so close
In
when you
color,
look
yeah.
at them. They're the exact same style of bottle too, 'cause the other two bottles are a different style.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that was awesome.
Does anybody have any other questions, any comments? So did you guys get to taste it?
Right.
Beautiful. I mean, it's 91 proof, so you're not crazy proofed, but that was where we found the best flavor profile. And the amount of, I mean, when you proof down, every barrel is a little bit different, but being able to put our water in it, you know, sometimes you have barrels that are close to that and you want to be able to put our water and make sure that those characteristics come out. So it's a beautiful, I mean, it's great for sipping. It's on the rocks, cocktailing, classic cocktails with this because it is a high rye. If you guys can get that peppery finish a little bit more than some of your Kentucky bourbons. It cocktails and classic cocktails so well, Manhattans, old fashions. I'm a fan of a Boulevardier, just because of that high rye content. So. Any more questions? I feel like I've been talking. Yes.
What's the mash bill in this?
So it is a proprietary mash bill. We do use a high rye, and honestly, they've never told me. I have no idea. It's not. They don't tell me. So because also, I think because we do source whiskeys, I don't know if it's something we can actually determine every time because of how we're blending. So I do know it's high rye. Obviously, the majority of it is corn, so it is a bourbon, and then there is malted barley in it. But we don't wheat it, so there's no wheat in it. It's just the 3 core grains. Thank you.
That's me.
Fun, like, so we are doing some, and we'll talk about this too a little later, but we just had the largest heirloom grain harvest in the entire world last year. We have actually been growing our own heirloom grains for a very long time, mostly corn, and we've actually made our own grain as well. So eventually all of our sourced whiskeys will be our own distilled whiskeys. However, our flagship's a 10-year, and we want to keep it a 10-year, or at least as close as possible before the whiskey is just too good to not throw, you know, when it's like better than what we have, then we're going to put it out there. But right now, we really want to get all of our sourced whiskeys into our own heirloom grains. So if you do go up to our distillery, there are, there are a few different heirloom corns that we use, Bloody Butcher, Wapsie Valley, there's a couple other that I can't remember. But when we were growing our heirloom corns in a few different fields, we grow in Kentucky, Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Between the Wapsie Valley and Bloody Butcher, we actually had a hybridization naturally occur. And it was this beautiful, high starch, red, like corn. It was amazing. We distilled with it because, I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Like, you've got this corn that's never been made before, and it was fantastic. So we do have some younger, I think we might even be close to like 6 years now on that stuff. But eventually we will probably be putting all of our whiskeys into that corn, and we're continuing to grow that varietal, which we dubbed Baby Jane. It's our Baby Jane corn. So that eventually all of our 10-year, all of our other bourbons will be only our own distilled. And we put a ton of juice up at that distillery. It's just, gotta keep the lights on. And we also make really good whiskey.
All right, we're going to let you grab some food, and we'll bring you back here in a few minutes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all in a little while. Record this, but this isn't specific to Widow Jane, so I'm going to slide here, and then I'm going to let you talk because the next course will be coming up in about 5 minutes or so. Okay. So this last weekend, I went down to Austin to the Crowded Barrel Distillery. They were having an event at the distillery, and I knew about the distillery. I'm actually one of their supporters. But what I didn't know, and just flabbergasted me when I got there, was they have this thing called the Wizarding Academy. Look it up. It's in Austin, Texas. It is basically they do a lot of different trainings and classes and stuff. One of the trainings that they do is they train whiskey sommeliers. You get 3 different tiers of whiskey sommelier. Basically, they're charging $1,000 a day for the classes, but I think they said the whiskey sommelier class was a 4-day class. But you get room and board while you're out there. So they actually put you up at the distillery. You get to taste. I mean, I've showed some people the bottle, their vault. Their vault has over 4,000 whiskeys in it, and they have another 1,000 in the basement that they haven't even tasted yet. So it's kind of incredible.
When are you going to do this, John?
Yeah, no.
This is the Whiskey Tribe guys?
This is the Whiskey Tribe guys. Yeah, this is Rex and Daniel. Yeah, so Daniel's a sommeliers. They mention all the time in the Whiskey Tribe, but yeah, so we actually met a lot of their trainees because they were helping out for the event, and it's a pretty incredible school. So the first floor, I guess Rex's dad is really into Don Quixote, so all Don Quixote art. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of art. It's just this beautiful room. Plus there's a wine vault down there too, to add to everything else, because they also do a little bit of wine here and there. But that whiskey vault was incredible, and that's how they train their sommeliers, is using all the different whiskeys that are in there. So it's really something to check out. It's definitely something to see. We were excited. So the first floor is just this art gallery. The second floor is basically their cafeteria. They cater in 3 meals a day for any students that are there. Third floor is the classroom. There's about 30 seats in the classroom. That's all they have. Fourth floor is the library, and it's basically open. The third floor is open to the fourth floor. It's just basically a large library wall of all different types of books, including whiskey books and that type of thing, because they do other types of training. So one of the big things they do is they do marketing training. That's how the Whiskey Tribe came about. They do marketing, they do e-commerce, they do all those kind of classes as well. They even have their own production studio on site, separate from the Whiskey Vault, which is where they do the Whiskey Tribe stuff. But then you go up to the roof and you walk out the roof, and there's the vault door, and they open the vault door, and there's the whiskey vault, and it's quite an incredible sight. And I do have some pictures of that. I think I sent them to you guys, but it is quite the incredible sight. So if you ever get a chance to check it out, or you want to be a whiskey sommelier down the road, or you want to just do something really cool, go see the Crowded Barrel Distillery. It's a unbelievable 40. It's like a 40 acre site that this place is on. It's really incredible. But now that I've gone that direction, so we have more from Widow Jane. So this one's my favorite of the tasting. So I got lucky finding Lucky 13. So I'm going to let you tell us all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. So this is red.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. The dot. John is supposed to be in charge of dots. Red dot.
We are on the red dot. So you guys can go and pour in that one. This is going to be our Widow Jane Lucky 13. So in the past, Widow Jane has done single barrels. A few years ago it was a 12-year. We transitioned to a 13-year and did that for about a year, and then decided we love our blending, we love our juice, we love our water, and we want to show the best of that. Not be confined to single barrels, but be able to, again, blend and give the product that we are proud of. So this is our Lucky 13, our new iteration, which is, again, a small batch bourbon. So 13 years or older. You can see the color.
1 second. All of this one is batch 1, by the way.
Oh, okay.
This is all this bottle. The bottle for this tasting was all batch 1.
You guys got batch 1. So we just started doing this. So you guys got the first batch, which is delicious, might I say. But this is our Lucky 13. So you might see it out there. People will call it the Black Label, Widow Jane Black Label. It's a little more robust. It obviously spends more time in those barrels. You'll get more of those, stronger notes, more oak, more pepper, more of those charred notes. And I think we're having barbecue, right? So it's gonna have burnt OJ barbecue with pork. So I think this is actually gonna go really well with this course that you guys are about to have as well. One of my favorites.
He smells it.
Are you excited? Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he smells the pork. Maybe not the bourbon, but he definitely smells the pork. But this is, you'll see this out there, this is limited. So we do go into our older stashes to make this whiskey. It is not as available as the 10-year. You'll find the 10-year everywhere. This one, like he said, on batch 1. We'll probably see batch 2 out here in a little bit, but not as available. I think the entire Maryland market right now only got 75 cases, so there's 6 packs. We're getting another 75 cases, I think, in like a month or so, and that's it until at least next summer. So you're not gonna see it out there a lot, Black Label, but it's delicious. You can, I'm gonna try and get you guys some to buy tonight. I'm gonna try.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I'm gonna try to see if we can get at least a few bottles for you guys to buy
like
from
a case or
them.
something, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so
I
I'll
was
work.
trying to get back to 400. You could have 60.
So we might be able to get a few of these. It's a little more expensive than our 10-year, but it's still delicious. Does anybody have any comments or questions or anything about this one? I really love this one.
What's your favorite thing?
Out of the Widow Jane line?
Yeah.
One at the, sorry.
What?
So-
Thank you, Brad.
This one you're actually at 93. You'll see some barrels that come out, single barrels, and you may see Black Label single barrels out there. Those ranged in proof. I think we did 91, 93, and 95 on those ones, just because what it came out of the rick house, how much water we wanted to add, the flavor profile, so it was proofed to what the barrel dictated. Whereas this one is blended again, small batch. We've kept them all 93. So our regular 10 years 91 proof. This one's 93, a little bit higher. Nothing crazy though. And then you asked my favorite. So the 10 years always been my favorite for the longest time. Decadence only came out like last year, so I really do love the Decadence. If I'm having like, if I'm out by the fire and I'm having like a cigar or something, I'm going for the vaults all the way. But then again, that's like a $225 bottle, so. You know, I get those ones. Depends on what I'm doing though. When I'm cocktailing and I'm having cocktails though, we'll have 2 rye whiskeys of Widow Jane. They're all about 4 to 5 years of age. But cocktailing with them, also those expensive, is they're amazing for cocktailing.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope everybody enjoys the next course. Okay, so the next whiskey is going to be the Green Dot. That will be the Green Dot, which is the American Oak Rye. So this is going to be the American Oak Rye. And, ma'am?
Yeah.
All yours.
Green, correct?
Yes, green.
The green dot. Please pour the green dot. So we're gonna move into rye whiskeys. So the first 2 that you guys had were our bourbons, and it's what we're known for. It's our flagship. What we're a little lesser known for, but also do just as well, is our rye whiskeys. These are not the age statement of 10 or 13. They are all straight whiskeys. I want to say we average 4 and 5 years, but again, it's about the taste. Again, it's a small batch. This is our oak aged rye, so we do add oak staves into the barrels. A lot of them, I think, are our Widow Jane bourbon barrels that we reuse for rye, since you can do that for bourbon. You cannot do that. I'm sure you guys all know that though. So this is our oak rye. So we add oak into it to help enhance that flavor. It is a high rye. You do get that black pepper spice. This is one of my favorite ones to cocktail with. It is great to sip on, but I love cocktailing with this.
So there are some people that probably don't know what defines a bourbon.
Oh yeah, sorry.
We talked a little bit about it earlier,
Yeah.
but we didn't quite finish it. You want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of rules in bourbon. Bourbon used to be used as a medicine. So they would make it in barrels. They would travel with it in, we all use bourbon as medicine a little bit now too, especially these days. But it was prescribed by doctors as medicine. So that's different than today. I don't have, if you guys have a doctor that prescribes you bourbon for medicine, I'll take his number. Right? I love hot toddies. But it used to be used as medicine. There were, it was only ever put in barrels you would travel with the barrel, and barrels are not, you know, I mean, they're easy to get into. You know, there's a few ways to get into a barrel and put things in it that are not what started. So they did start regulating bourbon and whiskeys, the US government. There's actually, you guys, I don't know if you guys have done Old Forester before.
We have not. That's coming up.
Old Forester is the first bottled bourbon. Actually, they did it themselves. So there's a ton of history of that. I used to sell Old Forester, love Old Forester, so no hard feelings there. Widow Jane's better. I'm just kidding. So they did start though some regulations and rules, and I do, you know, it's always about taxes. But to be considered a bourbon, you do have to be made in the U.S. There is a common misconception that bourbons are only made in Kentucky. That is not true.
In Bourbon County.
That has never been true. There is a Bourbon County, Kentucky, and the name bourbon did come from where 80% of the, you know, U.S.'s bourbon is made, but it doesn't have to be made there. They like to make you think that, or try to make you think that, but it's not. They have great bourbon, don't get me wrong. There is, you know, a bourbon row for a reason out there, but it doesn't have to be made there. So Widow Jane is made in New York. It does have to be put in a new charred American oak barrel. So like I was saying before, we use some of our Widow Jane barrels for this rye because you can reuse barrels for rye whiskey. You cannot reuse barrels for bourbon. You'll see a lot of scotches, even tequilas, different whiskeys around the world, Japanese whiskeys. They will buy bourbon barrels. There's a huge market for bourbon barrels. They can be very expensive depending where they're from, and they fly all over the world, and people will age their other spirits in it. So wine is aged in bourbon barrels and stuff like that. So there's.
Have you seen the Dewar's illegal mezcal barrels?
No.
It's terrible. Don't get it.
Oh.
Whatever you do. Whatever you do, don't get it.
Love mezcal.
I gave a sample of these two over here and a couple of these guys over here. It's
So
not
it's
good.
mezcal aged in Dewar's barrels?
No, it's Dewar's aged in mezcal barrels.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So the first fun fact, way too much information, the first liquor I ever had was Dewar's, and I was a Dewar's girl for a long time. I used to drink scotch.
Nothing
The
wrong
first
with
thing I
Dewar's.
ever drank was
Nothing
scotch.
wrong with Dewar's itself.
Yeah.
We did a tasting.
Yeah.
Recently.
So I used to love. I used to sell Dewar's too. So, but I was a Dewar's white label girl for a long time. I mean, I was young. I was, you know, young. But yeah, so this is our rye whiskey. Please taste it. We are having. What are we having? Gnocchi. The mushroom gnocchi. So actually, the spice with this and the oak, I think, will pair well with that mushroom sauce. The cream, yes.
When you say, you said you add oak, does it mean like you age it in oak?
So we still age it in American oak barrels that have been previously used, but there are we'll use new American oak. So there's staves. I want to say use corkscrews in this one. So they'll actually take, you know, they look like corkscrews. They fit in the bunghole. They're made to fit directly in the bunghole. And they make them into corkscrews because it has a larger surface area. So if you were to put a cylinder of wood in the barrel, it would still add some flavor, but that higher surface area adds even more. So the more liquid that you have in touch with the wood, just imparts more flavor. So to enhance that aging process and enhance the flavor profile in our high rye, because it's a very high rye whiskey. I don't know the mash bill. Don't know it, sorry. Someone's gonna ask, I know. We do add those in there, and it helps with the flavor profile that we like in a classic rye. And I would say this is a classic tasting rye. Maryland's known, it was known for a long time for our rye whiskeys. We have a Maryland style rye, it's a high rye whiskey. We used to make, it starts with a P, what's it called? Pikesville Rye here. One of the highest consumers of rye whiskey for a very, very long time. Then Prohibition, you know, people got.
Now we've got cider.
I wanted to say something. I can't say that on live TV. But it's a beautiful rye. So I do think it'll go well with this. But if you guys are looking for something that's not quite as expensive as Widow Jane 10-year to put in a cocktail because you don't want to sip something straight, this is a beautiful cocktail whiskey. And I love this one for classics, Manhattans, old fashions. I'm a fan of a Boulevardier. So anything like that, this is, and it's less expensive than the 10-year. So you get the Widow Jane water, the Widow Jane process and blending, and you know, I think Widow Jane's around $75 a bottle now for the 10-year. So this, I would say, you're in the $40, $50 range.
And Widow Jane isn't the only distillery that uses staves also in their barrels.
Oh yeah, no,
So
it's
there
a
are
very
lot of
common
companies out-
practice.
And there's a few rums that actually use staves in their, they'll do rum in metal barrels and then throw wood staves in there to give it a little bit of an age to it too.
Yeah, and so with bourbon too, you're using a brand new barrel. It was just charred, whether it's a number 3 or whatever, it's toasted. You have brand new, untouched wood that has all the flavor and everything in it to keep things like ryes, whiskey's more accessible, so you guys aren't paying an arm and legs. We just bought a brand new barrel that's more expensive than a used barrel. It helps with that kind of flavor profile, so you got a good quality product, something we can really put the flavor into, and it's not costing you an arm and leg to have that good product too.
Yeah, and there's one company that does something similar to doing a stave in the barrel, and that's actually Jack Daniels. So
Oh, yeah,
for their
the-
Sinatra Select,
Yeah.
they use a heavily charred barrel, but they basically drill the barrel out so it's got all those grooves in it on the inside to give it more of the wood flavor for the Sinatra Select.
Yeah.
So
it's the surface area of that one. They do, they'll char the wood and toast it, and then they will drill inside of the barrel so that there's brand new, uncharred, untoasted wood, which a lot of these staves that you put in the barrels are untoasted, as well as the toasted wood and more surface area. So it adds a separate profile of oak to the barrel.
and it's probably one of Jack Daniels' only products that I really like. But
Oh, I think Sinatra's good. I like Sinatra.
Sinatra's good. It's my son's favorite.
Oh.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. The gnocchi's here, so we'll let you guys start eating, and we'll draw another name here in just a moment. All right, everyone. We're gonna get ready for this last course. It's gonna be coming up in a little while. We're talking about Penn State. I know. He's got to be talking about Penn State, if anything. Yeah.
Doug talks about Penn State.
No. Mike does as well. Oh, they're everywhere. They're everywhere, Jim. They're everywhere. And many of them are going to be listening to this, so they'll know. That was Jim that was dissing on Penn State, just so everybody knows. Only Jim, yeah. All right, anyway. So the last course is going to be coming out here in just a few minutes. And this next rye is an interesting one because I actually really like this one a lot more than the American Oak. It's got a little bit more sweetness to it, and it does should pair very well with the dessert. And it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. What would you like to say?
If you want to get the decadence out, we can start getting them glasses, or do you want to just pour it? How do you want to get them decadent? Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that the American Oak, that I think out of all the pairings so far, that one paired the best. I don't know what you guys thought, but that one, and I've tasted that whiskey a lot, but I think that really, I mean, that came across, I really enjoyed that American Oak with that meal, so maybe I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. It's okay. Who in here really likes mushrooms? Literally everybody. All right. Who is not that much of a fan of mushrooms? Okay, there's a few of us. All right, there's less of us.
But the sauce was good.
The sauce was delicious. I tried every single type of mushroom on there. But then I didn't eat the rest of them. It's just a texture thing for me. I don't like oysters either. Sorry guys. Oysters I don't like. I know. So the first time I ever had an oyster, a friend of mine said, "You got to try this. It's amazing," and put it on a cracker.
Oh.
That's not a friend.
And so that was my first foray into oysters, and I do try them here and there, but I can't get that out, and that, like, the cracker versus oyster texture is never a good one, okay? And the textures for me, so I can't get over that oyster. The flavor is great, the saltiness, the brine, whatever,
What state
but...
were you in when this happened?
Oh, I was in Fells Point.
Oh, yeah, whoever did like that needs to lose their restaurant privileges.
No, he's still a very good friend of mine, but I think he thought it would be easier for me, and it just was not.
Sadly mistaken.
Sadly mistaken.
Crackers on his face.
That was much nicer than mine.
So anyway, so we'll get back to whiskey. So this is our Applewood Rye. So just like our Oak Rye, we take our Applewood staves and add it to the barrel. So this one, I believe, are honeycombs. So they are, I want to say they're actually square for some reason. They might be circular, but they take...
Yellow dot, by the way, for everybody.
Oh yes,
Sorry.
well, the one that's not empty.
That's very good.
So we take the staves from the Applewood tree. So this is not apple flavored rye whiskey. It is Applewood aged rye whiskey. So we take the applewood from the Applewood trees. And the staves are made, and they're honeycombs because you drill holes into them at a bunch of different angles, so it kind of looks like a honeycomb, which increases the surface area again, just like the corkscrews do. And we add that into the barrel. So it's actually the same mash bill as your oak. The only thing that's different is we add Applewood staves to this. So if you guys want to try this one and see what you all think. After the last one, both these ryes are amazing. This in a classic Manhattan, you get a little bit of applewood, especially if you put some other types of bitters in there, and use good vermouth. I hope everyone knows what good vermouth is in here. Does everyone know? Does everybody know that you have to refrigerate your vermouth when you open it?
Yes.
Who does not know that? No one's gonna answer. All right.
I'm not sure I have
I'm disappointed in both of you over there, by the way.
There are.
Never used it. I didn't even know what
That's okay then.
We don't drink it.
So there are some, and I'm not gonna say names, but there are some amazing vermouths out there, and they're Antiqua's good.
Have you ever had the local vermouth from here in Baltimore out of the, what do they call it, the kitchen or something like that? It's a collective here in Baltimore.
Really? No,
Yeah.
I have not tried it.
Oh, it's incredible.
I'm all about low proof sometimes because I drink a lot of high proof stuff, and sometimes I need to give my, kidneys and liver a break.
Bring it back down.
Yeah. But vermouths, and when you're doing a cocktail that has whiskey and vermouth in it, you want a vermouth that's on the same level as your whiskey, right? You're not gonna put a crap vermouth with your whiskey. Sorry, excuse my French. So I've been really good. I swear like a sailor, and I've been really good this whole night, except for some tables. Maybe at some tables I haven't.
Oh, hey, shipmates.
So I've been trying to be really good because this is all documented for posterity. So that was my bad word for this. But when you're making a cocktail, even if you're just putting soda water or you're putting a tonic in it, you want to have every ingredient in your cocktail at the same level as your main ingredient, right? So when you do go out there, there are good vermouths out there. Yes, please, when you open it, refrigerate. Yes, it does go bad. The vermouth that you've had in your fridge from last year is not good anymore.
Wow.
What if it wasn't the fridge?
Definitely not good anymore. But you'll see the difference. I mean, try some different vermouths, see what you like. Rouge, dry, Bianco is one of my favorites. I'm a big martini girl as well, so I love mixing some Bianco in there, which is kind of in between the sweetness of your dry and your rouge, but it's not red. It's a wine, it's a fortified wine basically, so it's gonna go bad. Technically, if you have a nice red wine out on the counter, after 3 days you start losing the profile of it. So.
3 days.
I know.
Last 3 days.
I don't know.
Did something happen to the house where I had to leave?
So, after that, cook with it. The wine in your fridge lasts a little bit longer. Give it a week and then cook with it. But yes, vermouth, there's good vermouths out there. People take a lot of time, just like they do with whiskeys, into making good vermouths. Some people, I mean, a vermouth spritzer is
There is one big
fantastic.
name brand out there that I won't mention the name, but you see it on every single shelf.
And it's on
That will
the,
last 20 years because it tastes as bad 20 years from now as it does right now. So just don't buy it in the first place and you'll make a mistake.
just put it in the fridge, okay? Open it, put it in the fridge, and we'll go from there. We're gonna start there. However,
Dolan.
this cocktail with a good vermouth in a nice Manhattan is probably one of my favorite things. One of the most fun things you can do in just changing up a classic cocktail so you don't have to have a bunch of different ingredients at your house is change your bitters. You know, there's chocolate bitters out there, there's cardamom bitters, black walnut's one of my favorites. There's so many different bitters. I mean, change your bitters, you change your cocktail completely, and it's gonna start bringing out different flavors in that same whiskey and vermouth combination you had before. So it's the easiest thing you can do, and bitters will last a long time, and you don't need to put those in your fridge.
Good advice. Good advice.
Cherries.
If it's bright
So
red, we're not friends.
there are places for those cherries, and they usually go on ice cream. So those bright red cherries on ice cream, it brings back like the nostalgia of your childhood. You know, where does everyone know Baskin Robbins is? We still know Baskin Robbins. Great. You got a clown face on your ice cream with cone, and there were cherries on it. Those cherries are great on your clown face ice cream. Please get some nice cherries, brandy cherries, Luxardo cherries. Those you also have to refrigerate.
Because the other ones aren't real.
There's one brand that I think it might be Woodford cherries that is not refrigerated because of the sugar content in it, that you don't need to. But check the labels. Most of them you do have to refrigerate, and they will last a long time in your fridge.
They're really pretty awesome.
Yeah, the blue and white, like so there's a few that you don't need and the cherries can actually give you a nice flavor into your cocktail as well. So they do have a function instead of just being fun to fish out of the bottom of the ice in your cup. So.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to get a big jar of Luxardo cherries cheap, go to the restaurant store over on
Cane
Eastern
Street.
Ave.
Oh,
yeah,
Eastern?
well, it's off of it's Eastern, and then you turn down another street.
Cane.
Probably Cane.
It's Cane.
Cane. Yeah, fantastic place, and they've got the giant jar for really reasonable.
Yeah, just tell them any restaurant name when you go in there. They don't care.
That's true. Exactly.
Yeah. Just
You
you're
tell any
supposed
restaurant
to
name.
have a license. You're supposed to have a license. So there, it's called the restaurant store. The restaurant store on Cane Street over
Right
in
next
like
to
Dundalk
Prima Foods,
Eastern.
right?
Yeah, right next to Prima Foods.
Yeah.
Technically, it's for restaurants only. If you walk in and say, "I'm with Blue Hill Tavern," then they'll just say you have a membership and you can buy whatever you want, and it's all wholesale prices. So anything they have, like I got my pizza peel there. They have like all sorts of restaurant stuff, big crass, serving dishes, all sorts of stuff for like really cheap. So
Yeah, actually, you can walk in there and you can buy stuff that you never thought you would buy. It's incredible. They've got just everything. Just really cute little like frying pans, like the tiny ones.
little
that
egg
you just
frying
can do a little dessert in or whatever. You know, serve it a couple times. Yeah. All right. Do you want to say anything else about whiskey before we go? Now that we've really gotten off the subject.
Did everyone try this? What do you guys think of the Applewood versus the classic oak?
I prefer this better.
Applewood?
For it.
Yeah. So the oak is a classic high rye whiskey. It's great for cocktail. You get that spice in it, but putting that Applewood into this mellows it out. Like you said, might put some sweetness on your palate. Some people, when you say Applewood, you'll taste Applewood. You know, you'll get some apple in there, and you will. It's Applewood. It's just the wood of the apple tree and not the fruit. So it does really cocktail well again too. But you can sip on this stuff. All right. Does anyone have any more questions? I feel like I've been talking all night. All right, thank you everyone. The dessert's coming out right now. I just want to mention, and we mentioned this in the thing, there's no tax for tonight, taxes included. However, gratuity was not, so please remember Nancy. She's been really great to all of us. So please remember her as you're leaving your tips for the evening. Thank you very much to everybody for coming tonight.